People at the mansion that afternoon thought they were witnessing something ordinary, a poor black maid being shamed by a wealthy family, but they had no idea. The moment she quietly asked for just a glass of water, everything shifted. The lady of the house looked at her with disgust, the guests stared like she was invisible, and someone even whispered that she didn't belong there. What no one knew, this single humiliating moment was minutes away from exploding into a twist the entire neighborhood would never forget. Because the woman they mocked for her skin, her clothes, and her poverty wasn't who they thought she was, sometimes the quietest moments expose the loudest truths, and on that warm Sunday afternoon, the wealthy Brookside neighborhood was buzzing with excitement. A lavish birthday party was taking place at the biggest mansion on the street, the Grant residence. Dozens of guests dressed in elegance walked across the polished marble floors, sipping expensive drinks and sharing polite, empty conversations. Outside, the sun hit hard and the air felt dry. At the gate stood a black woman, thin, exhausted, and wearing a worn-out uniform. Her name was Leela. She had come to help clean before the party, but everything about her presence made the rich guests uncomfortable. She didn't complain, though. She simply worked, quietly, calmly, like she had done her whole life. After 2 hours of serving and cleaning under the scorching sun, her throat felt like sandpaper. She hesitated but gathered courage to ask for something small, something basic. A glass of water, but in this mansion, even water seemed to have a different rule depending on who asked for it. When Leela stepped inside the living room, her voice was barely above a whisper. She approached the host, Mrs. Grant, a tall, impeccably dressed woman who carried herself like royalty. Leela softly said she wasn't feeling well and needed a small glass of water. The room went silent. Mrs. Grant looked her up and down with open disgust. Not anger, not annoyance, something colder, like Leela wasn't a human being, but a stain on her perfect event. She didn't bother lowering her voice. If you need water, use the back pipe outside, she said. Don't bring your presence into my guest's space. Guests turned their heads, some whispered, some smirked. Others simply pretended nothing happened because ignoring was easier than caring, and caring didn't match their luxurious setting. Leela didn't argue. She simply nodded and stepped back, but her vision blurred. Dehydration was clawing through her. She rested her hand on a wall, gathering her balance. A few guests watched her struggle but chose to look away. After all, sympathy wasn't fashionable there. Minutes later, she stepped outside again, trying to find the backyard pipe Mrs. Grant mentioned, but the sun punished her mercilessly. She stumbled, nearly collapsing, but steadied herself. Inside, guests complained that having a black maid fainting around the house would ruin the event's aesthetic. Someone even suggested replacing her with a proper service staff next time. While they complained, Leela sat quietly near the back entrance, trying to regain her strength without being noticed. But someone did notice. A little girl around 10 years old named Emma, Mrs. Grant's daughter. Unlike the adults, Emma didn't see Leela as different. She saw a human being, exhausted and thirsty. Without saying a word to anyone, she went to the kitchen, filled a glass of cold water, and carried it outside with both hands. When she reached Leela, she held out the glass gently. Leela looked up, surprised and grateful. She took the glass with shaking hands and drank slowly, almost fighting tears. Emma sat beside her quietly. She didn't say anything profound. She didn't need to. Her presence alone was kindness in a place filled with silent cruelty. But when Mrs. Grant saw this from inside the house, her face turned pale with a mix of rage and fear. She rushed outside, grabbed Emma's arm, and pulled her away. "What do you think you're doing?" she hissed. "Don't drink after her. Don't touch her. Don't go near her." She then turned to Leela and, without hesitation, humiliated her in front of everyone near by accusing her of trying to manipulate her daughter for sympathy. Neighbors watched through windows. Party guests looked away, pretending not to hear. The gardener froze mid-step. No one said a word. They had seen racism before, but this was different. It was cruel, unnecessary, and painfully public. Then something unexpected happened. A black SUV rolled into the driveway, slow, silent, and commanding. The kind of car that made even wealthy families straighten up. People turned their heads, confused. From the back seat stepped out a tall man in a gray suit. His presence immediately shifted the atmosphere. He was calm, but there was authority in his walk, the kind that couldn't be ignored. Mrs. Grant recognized him instantly, and her face drained of color. It was Michael King, one of the most influential property investors in the state, the man whose company owned half the neighborhood, including the land her mansion stood on. He didn't look at the guests. He didn't greet anyone. He walked straight toward Leela. The entire crowd watched in stunned silence. He knelt beside her, gently placing his hand on her shoulder. "Are you all right?" he asked softly with the concern the others never showed. Leela nodded weakly, still shocked he was there. Then he stood up and looked directly at Mrs. Grant, and the truth came out. "Leela is my sister." Gasps filled the entire yard. Mrs. Grant staggered back, speechless. People exchanged looks. Whispers spread instantly like wildfire. Michael continued, his voice steady but powerful. "She came here to inspect the working conditions of the staff we sponsor, not as a maid but as a partner in my company." The silence grew heavier. "And the way she was treated today," he said, turning slowly toward the crowd, "tells me everything I need to know about this neighborhood." People lowered their eyes in shame. Mrs. Grant trembled. She tried to apologize, stumbling over her words, pretending it was a misunderstanding. But the damage was already done. Every guest had seen who she really was. Michael didn't shout. He didn't insult anyone. He simply said, "Leela will decide what happens next." All eyes turned to her. Leela, still weak but now emotionally stronger than anyone there, stood up slowly. Her voice was calm, almost peaceful. "I don't want revenge," she said. "I just want everyone here to remember one thing. You didn't refuse me because I was a maid. You refused me because I was black." Her words echoed through the yard. Every act of racism begins with someone believing they're better than someone else. She continued, "But today, the only person who showed true class was your daughter." Emma stepped forward, her small face proud, unafraid. That moment cracked something inside the adult's: guilt, realization, maybe even shame. Leela looked at the girl and smiled. "Thank you, sweetheart. You taught them what kindness looks like." The crowd stood frozen, not knowing where to hide from the truth that had just been exposed in front of them. By the end of the day, the wealthy neighborhood learned a lesson they never expected. Respect isn't measured by money, skin color, or status, but by the humanity you show when no one is looking. For days, the incident spread across the community. People talked, people whispered, but one thing became clear: the richest woman in the neighborhood had been exposed not for her wealth, but for her heart. And it took a dehydrated black woman and a 10-year-old girl to show everyone what real dignity looked like.